In it, you'll find an air ticket and some instructions. A makeup artist and someone from the costume department are already in Istanbul, and they will know what to do with you." "But Rick," I said. I was puzzled. "What do you mean? Why do I need to see costume and makeup people? I'm not an actor." "You're gonna be Brent Foster's double," Rick replied. "You look and sound a lot like him. When you're made up, people will think you are him." Chapter 14. A New Man. I left my office and drove to the Magic Movie Production Studios. I asked for Mr. Frank's office at Gate 4 and was sent to a large administration building. I waited, and after 10 minutes, I was taken to Mr. Frank's office. I had expected to talk to a secretary, but I was taken in to see Mr. Frank himself. Homer Frank was a tall, bald man with a neat gray beard. He walked round his huge desk to shake my hand. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, pointing to some leather armchairs in one corner of the enormous office. "I wanted to see you myself before you left for Istanbul. Your air ticket and Rick's instructions are in this." He handed me a long, thin brown envelope. "I hope that Rick has told you how important it is for this studio that nobody hurts Gale. Death Behind the Door is going to be a blockbuster, and nothing will stop us finishing it. And it's important that Gale shouldn't know anything about the threats. She would worry, and that would upset her. Then she wouldn't act well." "I think she's already worried," I replied, and I told Mr. Frank about the attack on Gale in the Recoleta cemetery. "Yes, I know about that," the studio boss replied. "Rick called me soon after it happened, and before that, there was Josie's accident." "Yeah, Josie's accident. There's one thing I wanted to ask you, Mr. Frank," I said. "Rick told me that you had received the death threats against Gale by email." "That's correct," Frank said. "I don't know a lot about computers," I went on. "But isn't the address of the sender usually given on an email message? Where did the messages come from?" Homer Frank looked out of the window as he answered. "I don't know," he replied quickly. "When I switched on my computer, the messages were waiting for me, but there was no sender's address." "Could I see the messages? There might be some clues in them," I said. Frank shook his head. "No, I'm afraid I deleted the messages after I read them." Just then, a secretary came into the room. "Excuse me, Mr. Frank," he said, "but there's an urgent phone call for you." "Who is it?" Frank asked. "The caller wouldn't give his name. It's a man, and he says he's a friend of Vincent," the secretary replied. Then he left the room. Homer Frank's face suddenly looked much older. He walked across to his desk and picked up a red phone. Then he sat on the desk with his back towards me. It was a short phone call. Frank said yes 3 times and no twice. Then he put the phone down and sat still and silent. After a minute, he got up and walked back to the corner where I was sitting. "You'll have to excuse me, Samuel," he said abruptly. "There's some urgent work which I must do. Go to Istanbul and make sure that nothing bad happens to Gale." I left the administration building and got into my Chrysler. I sat and thought for a while before looking in the envelope I had in my hand.